So, very good morning, everybody. I hope all of you can see and hear me clearly. We meet again for another analysis, another article, right? And this is a daily routine now. We meet at 10 o'clock every day in the morning and we discuss different articles, right? And before we begin with anything else, let me quickly show you the YouTube schedule. This schedule is something which is, as you can see, it covers the entire week. We have classes every day, and what happens here is, a lot of help is given to you in terms of your preparation for different exams. These all these classes are invaluable. They will definitely give a boost to your preparation for the MBA entrance exams. Right. So this is the entire week's schedule, as you can see. Right now, before beginning with anything else, let me quickly tell you one thing. So far we have been doing a lot of articles, we have been analyzing articles to a great extent. Nothing wrong, we will do it, we'll continue doing it also. In fact, that is like laying the foundation. But once in a while we should, try, we should basically try to, test ourselves, we should evaluate ourselves. And exactly, this is exactly what we will do today. We will take up a question from CAT 2005, a passage from CAT 2005, and let's see where we stand. So the passage which I'm going to show you today is from CAT 2005 with questions. And let me tell you one thing, as far as English section is concerned, CAT 2005, 6, 7, these three are considered slightly challenging, right? So if you're able to solve this, well and good, would be good, right? So let's see, and I hope everybody can see and hear me clearly now. The first slide is this, right? I will give you time to read it, and of course some words which I think will be difficult, I have highlighted it, but it's your choice. You can point out whatever words you do not know, right? And then we can discuss it. So everybody quickly take some time to read it. You will require 30-40 seconds to read it. Everybody is reading it, I hope. And all of you, I hope, can see the passage, right? And if you come across anything you don't understand, you can simply point out. By the way, since you have read it for some 20-30 seconds, let me ask you, what is this passage about? What is the author speaking about? So a game of strategy as currently conceived in game theory is a situation in which two or more players. So he is speaking about a game. What is a game? It seems to be like a certain contest, right, in which two or more players are involved, and they are involved in something like a game in which, each of the players make moves, right, and they try to gain points. It's more like a contest. Think everybody is clear, right? And you can see the totality of choices determine the outcomes of the games, and it's assumed that the rank order of preferences of outcomes is different for different players. What is saying is that everybody's interest will be different. One result will be good for somebody, and one result will be good for another one. So the results, the outcomes will have different what you call value. People will have different preferences for the outcomes. In short, different outcomes will present different interest to different people, right? So as a result of that, the interests of the players are in conflict, right? So we know saying it is most probably chess, not just chess, it is any game, right? In game here, basically in the context of game theory, right? He is speaking about any kind of a contest, right? In which two or more people are involved. Could be chess, could be even a crossword, could be anything, could be even a you know in any game. It could be any game in which two people are engaged. Okay, right? So yes, Aniket, it's a description of game theory, right? So whether these interests are diametrically opposite or only partially opposed depends on the type of game. So he is saying that, okay, the interest of the players, right? What is diametrically opposite? Diametrically opposite means one man's gain is the other person's loss, right? Matlab, it's like what is good for me is 100% opposite, 100% bad for somebody else. That is diametrically opposed. Partially opposed basically means it may not be like exact opposites. Of course, it may be different, but it may be not something which is 100% opposite. So diametrically opposite is almost like on in a circle, the 2 points which are at the tip of the diameter, they are exactly opposite. So it may be exactly opposite or it could be partially opposed. Okay, so that is what is the idea. Everybody has read it, I hope. If everybody has read it, quickly give me an indication so that I can continue. Everybody has read it, I hope. And as I was telling you, this is from CAT 2005. Right. The passage is not long. It looks long because I'm giving you paragraph by paragraph and I'm also making the font a little bit bigger so that you will be able to understand. Right. So, Aniket, yes, diametrically opposed means completely okay. 1 minute. It is not here. He is speaking about the interests, right? The moves and choices. He's speaking about a situation in which two or more people are involved, right? Now, the choices. There are many choices that everybody will have, right? And the choices that they take will determine the outcome, right? Now they can be different outcomes. Everybody will want different outcomes, and the interests, therefore, they are in conflict. Are they 100% in conflict or are they partially in conflict? It depends. Okay, right? Everybody is clear. Everybody is clear. Okay. Somil, second last sentence. Which one? Second last sentence. You mean the interest of the players are generally in conflict? See, this paragraph tells you that since everybody is involved and there are different choices leading to different outcomes, right? Different outcomes will have different value for different players. Therefore, the players' interests are in conflict. Is it 100% in conflict or is it partially in conflict? That depends entirely on the game. Right, everybody is clear with this, I hope. Shall we change the slide? Sorry. I'm changing the slide. Everybody has read it, I hope. Right. Now, everybody knows the introductory, phase. What we was telling you was that there are certain situations in which two or more people may be involved, right? And the choices that they make will bring different outcomes. And each outcome will have a different set of value for players, which basically means one outcome may be good, may be bad for different players. So therefore, the interests are in conflict. Are they 100% in conflict or not depends on the game. Right. Now, the first sentence that you read here will tell you, right, psychologically interesting situations arise when the interest of the players are partly coincident and partly opposed. That means you will not know exactly what is good for me sometimes may be bad for the others, or sometimes what is good for me could also be good for others. So it is not clear, it is not a linear kind of a relation. Okay, so sometimes they can be partly coincident, basically means my what is good for me could be good for my opponent. Sometimes it can completely change, what is bad for me can be good for him, right? So you are speaking about how it's basically a mixture of a zero sum game and a non-zero sum game. ठीक है, all clear, I hope. Everybody is clear with this. Yes. Vaishnavi, perfectly fine, just a little bit of a cold, not much of an issue, everything is fine, right? So interesting situations arise when the interests are partly coincident and partly opposed. That means sometimes they can, they are together, so the interests are coincident, are the same, sometimes they can be opposite. So only then one can postulate. What do we mean by postulate? Postulate means to present the theory, right? So postulate means present, to present the theory. So only then one can conflict the player, postulate not only a conflict but also inner conflicts within the player. So therefore, if you read this, right, interesting kab hota hai, when the players do not know whether they should cooperate with each other or they should work against each other. So they will have inner conflicts. This is when interesting, psychology occurs, right? So each is torn between a tendency. So they do not know what to do. Should we cooperate with each other or should we work against each other? So this is something that this leads to psychologically interesting situations. Everybody is clear? Right. So when you have internal conflict means within the player itself, he will not know what to do. If I do this, it is good for me, but will it be good for the others or will it be bad for the others? So I do not know. So should I do this, take this step or not? So they will not know whether to cooperate or to compete. Right. Everybody is clear with this, I hope. Yes. So internal conflicts, according to the author, are always psychologically interesting. What we call interesting so he's saying interesting psychology is nothing else but psychology of the inner conflict. And if you notice, read this line. Inner conflict is also an important component of serious literature. So he uses the difference between serious literature and less serious literature is that serious literature will present inner conflict. So therefore, by default, right, the less serious literature will present conflict which is superficial, not inner. Right. So genres basically means different types of or different categories of literature. Right. So he tells you the classical tragedy and the serious novel, they reveal inner conflict, not just, superficial or physical or outside conflict. Right. They represent conflict of the players. Right. Let's see. Next, I have changed the slide. Everybody is able to read it or everybody has read it, I hope. Now, in this slide, you will see, right, he's telling you, the opposite of inner conflict, right? Matlab, in deep or in serious literature, you come across inner conflict. What happens in the other kind? I hope everybody can see this. Sabko. Right. So what is he telling you here? Here he is telling you about what happens in the superficial story. Serious and deep literature, they present inner conflict. Right. Superficial matlab something which is very, not deep. Right. So it depicts, as in it presents, right, only external conflicts. So what is external conflict? The threat to the person, it stems from, meaning it comes from, it rises from stories, it comes from external obstacles or from the adversaries. Adversaries are people who are opponents. Adversary means opponent. So in external conflict, the threat comes from, threat actually comes from external obstacles or from the people who create these external obstacles, right? Then he's telling you, right, this is a psychologically empty situation. What does fisticuff? वैष्णवी identifies stem in, देखो ऐसे मत देखो, the threats to the person stem. So stem is a verb, right? The threat to the person with whom the reader identifies, that means the threat to the main character stems from external obstacles. In short, in superficial stories, what happens is that in superficial stories, the threat or the risk comes from external things, not from internal conflict. This is what is telling you. Okay, right. Now, So this kind of a conflict is psychologically empty. In the fisticuffs between the protagonist of good and evil, what is fisticuff? Fisticuff basically means fight. So, and what are protagonists? Protagonists are like supporters, right? So supporters, main characters rather. Protagonist is basically a main character. So in the fight between the good and the evil, right, though no psychological problems are presented, right? And what do you mean by juvenile? Juvenile means childish, not mature, right? Then he gives you the detective story, right? The adult analog of a juvenile. So analog basically means parallel, something which is the parallel. So the detective, in the detective story, right, he tells you that the conflict that we see here is external. So therefore, he's telling you the features of the less serious category of writers of literature in which he presents the detective story. Everybody is clear till here, right? So as you can see, the idea, the the passage is not easy to understand, but I hope all of you are able to follow so far what we have been doing, right? So all clear, I think, right? Should I change the slide? Chalo, let's see. Now, here he is telling you in psychological or in detective stories, right? Detective stories may superficial, the superficial interest is created, right? There is superficial interest, the conflict is external. He tells you sometimes they modify it to make it a little bit more challenging. What is that? Is what is describing here, right? So Payal, analogous basically means parallel to. So if I say X is analogous to Y, that means X is similar or parallel to Y, right? Glorification of intellectualized conflict. If you notice, the detective story is glorification of intellectualized conflict. That basically means in detective story, actually it is external conflict, but it is glorified. That means it is presented as something great, though it is not great, right? So it is presented as intellectualized conflict, conflict which is of the mind. It is presented as conflict of the mind, but the author tells you that in an actual detective story, what happens is not really deep, right? It is very simple. It is nothing else but the threat comes from external sources. There is no internal conflict in the characters involved. Okay, clear? I hope everybody understood. Right now, so in the previous slide, he was telling us about in less serious literature, you do not have internal conflict and you have external conflict. Now, so detective stories have external conflict, right? But we present it as something great. Then now he's going to tell you how they hold interest. Hold interest by whom? By detective stories by using a certain technique. Let's see. So he says a great deal of the plots of these stories is sustained by withholding the unraveling of a solution to a problem, right? So since it lacks psychological interest, right? It does not have internal conflict, right? It is merely dealing with external problems. But to make it interesting, what do? They keep back the solving of the problem. It is kept mysterious, in short. Right. Now, then the author tells you here this line, the effort of solving the problem is not a conflict. So when the effort of solving the problem is not a conflict, if the adversary remains passive like nature, whose secrets the scientist supposedly unravels by induction. So here he tells you that the solving of any problem does not present an internal conflict because your opponent remains passive. Your opponent that does not change himself. Your opponent is not dynamic, right? So therefore, according to him, the scientist's effort is also not psychologically interesting because it does not present internal conflict. It is simply dealing with an external problem, right? Now, then he tells you, right, if on the other hand, if your opponent actively puts obstacles in the path, then there is conflict. So This is where he is telling you, even in a detective story, there can be conflict like this. If the opponent dynamically changes the situation, if the situation keeps on changing, then it can be interesting. Okay, right, all clear, I hope. Right. Now, what is quirk? Quirk means something strange, right? Or something which is bizarre. I hope all of you are getting this point now. So he's telling you here that the interest that is created in these stories, right? It is, we do it by withholding the solution, but then in effect, right? It is not interesting because we are dealing with external things, right? It can be interesting if there are active changes are made to the situation, and it is also made interesting because the irrational the there are certain errors committed by the opponent which changes the entire situation. Okay, all clear everybody? Right, so pile unravel basically means suljhana, unraveling of a solution to a problem, that means solving the problem. Right, everybody is clear with this, I hope. Right, everybody has read it, I hope. Yes. Last slide before we reach the questions. So, Mill, inner conflict is what he describes in the beginning. Inner conflict is when you yourself do not know what to do in a situation, right? There are many people involved, right? What is good for me may be good for the others, right? May also be bad for the others. So, what should I do to advance my own position? Should I help others or should I compete with them? This is inner conflict. Okay, and Somil, by the way, inner conflict is something which is already defined in the beginning. So that is what he's saying. So that conflict is lacking in detective novels. It can be made interesting if there are active changes in the situation. So if there are active changes in the situation, then the characters in that story will go through inner conflict. He tells you also, therefore, that scientists, right, the problems that they solve, they do not get inner conflict because they are actually trying to solve the secrets of nature. Nature does not actively change itself. So scientists, while solving the problems of nature, will not go through inner conflict. Okay, getting the point? Everybody understood, I hope. Right. Now, here he is telling you what is what is interest, what is, he is actually summarizing the whole thing. Let's see. So conflict conducted in a perfectly rational manner is psychologically no more interesting than a standard western. What is a western here? Anybody, what is a western? What does the author mean by this word western here? By western, he basically means a western movie, cowboy movie, right? He says that if if the entire game is conducted rationally, then it is not interesting because everything will become predictable. For example, he says, for example, tic tac toe played perfectly is completely devoid of psychological interest. What is tic tac toe? Tic tac toe is this game, right? When you play something like this, there are columns, and you start, you play this. This is called tic tac toe. बचपन में सबने खेला होगा. This is tic tac toe, remember? Right, so what is it trying to say here? He's trying to tell you that any conflict, right, or any game which is played 100% in a rational manner is like tic tac toe. It is devoid of any psychological interest. Why? Because it is purely, you can calculate mathematically, and that way you can very easily find out what is good, what is bad, right? So it can be all, nothing, it is all predictable. It is all predictable. ठीक है। कृष्णकांत, रैशनल का मतलब क्या होता है? रैशनल इन अ प्योरली लॉजिकल मैनर, राइट? सो इफ यू प्ले टिक टैक टो इन अ प्योरली लॉजिकल मैनर, राइट, he says it is not interesting because everything can be predicted, right? In fact, even he says the same thing with chess. Chess may be interesting, right, but it is interesting because it is not played rationally. If it is played completely rationally, matlab by calculating, by using mathematics, if you play chess, if two people play chess using purely mathematical means, then nobody will win. Are you getting the point? Right. So that is not interesting. It will be interesting when, the two opponents have minor, they have psychological, they go through conflict, right? There will be something irrational. Only then it will become slightly unpredictable. Okay, all clear? So you understand now what he means by what is actual conflict, right? So playing tic-tac-toe, there's no conflict in there. Everything can be predicted by permutations and combinations by the laws of mathematics. Okay, everybody's understanding it clear, I hope. So now devoid, Vaishnavi, devoid of means without any. So if I say it is devoid of psychological interest, that means there is no psychological interest, right? So devoid of means not present at all. So if I say devoid of interest, there is no interest. Okay, all clear? Right. Now, last paragraph. Yes, Aniket, right? Like when chess is played, देखो, when chess is played system versus system, or let's say if you basically play chess using mathematical calculations, now it will not be interesting at all. It will become boring because everything will be very easily predictable. ठीक है, right? So clear, right? Payal, standard Western. Here he means a standard Western movie. A Western is a movie जिसमें प्लॉट जो है सबको पता होता है कि क्या होगा. ठीक है, काउबॉय मूवी बेसिकली. ठीक है, right now last paragraph, let's try to summarize what you see. In short, a pure conflict of interest, what is called a zero sum game, right, is not interesting psychologically, right? Now, so what is he telling you? Therefore, in this last line, what is a zero sum game? Zero sum game is what is good for me is bad for you, and vice versa. So this is 100% kind of a conflict, in the sense that if we are engaged in a game, what is good for me is bad for you. So therefore the game will be very easy, right? I will have to work for my benefit. Naturally it will be bad for you. So according to him, this is not interesting, right? What is interesting? When partially opposite, partially coincident ho, when I will not know what to do, because when I do something, it might end up being good for both of us. More, it could be better for you, it could be a little bit worse for me, right? So this is what he says is internal conflict. Okay, so zero sum game is like mostly, most games mein hota hai, what is a gain for one is the loss for the opposite. So it is not psychologically interesting. ठीक है, everybody has read it, I hope, right? So he is telling you in this passage, if you sum it up, he is describing what actually makes a situation interesting. If it contains inner conflict among the players, right, it will be interesting. Otherwise it is not psychologically interesting. ठीक है, shall we look at the questions? This is the first question, right? Read the question carefully. You can see there are 4 options. According to the passage, internal conflicts are psychologically more interesting than external conflicts because this is a question, the answer to which is directly given in the passage, right? If you remember the passage, try to answer it, right? In the exam you will be free to refer to the relevant part. Yaha I am not going to show you the relevant part because it will become very easy, right? First try to answer it on the basis of what you remember, then I will show you exactly what it is taken from, where is it taken from. And here there's an option which is a little bit confusing, right? So Siddharth is saying answer is E. Okay, question answer is A. Question को समझ के चलो everybody. So he is asking you Why is internal conflict more interesting than external conflict? Everybody is answering A, right? So Aditya and Aniket think the answer is C. Okay. Vaishnavi, D. Okay. So majority, some people are saying answer is C. Majority are saying answer is C. Let me quickly show you what is the answer. The answer is C. The answer is actually C. Why? Right. Dekho. I will take you to the part. He is telling you why is internal conflict more interesting, right? Why is internal conflict more interesting, right? You will find the answer here. You will find the answer in this paragraph. We have already read this. More psychologically arise when the interest of the players are partly coincident and partly opposed, because only then one can postulate. Look at this entire paragraph. This will tell you, right? Internal conflict is more interesting because in internal conflict, sorry, the players will not know should we cooperate with each other or should we compete against each other. So it will lead to internal conflict. This is why it is more interesting, right? Now, he also tells you that because of this, internal conflict is present in serious literature. Okay, now, so why can't A be the answer? Right? I hope everybody remembers this line. Just read it again. Right. Internal conflict is more interesting because the players do not know, right, what is good for me is good for the others or bad. Right. So are my interests opposite or the same as my opponents? We do not know. So the person does not know what to do. So this brings inner conflict. Because of this reason, right, inner conflict is present in serious literature also. Now, so what should be the answer? If you read this, the best answer is C. ठीक है. Now, for those of you who mark A, I will explain. Question क्या पूछा जा रहा है? Why is it more interesting? Right. A is not the cause but the effect. Question asked is why? Right. So you require answer like because. A is not the cause, it's an effect. Since it is interesting, you find it in serious literature. It is not that you find it in serious literature, that is why it's interesting. No, it is interesting because internal conflicts are interesting because the players involved do not know what to do. Should they compete or should they cooperate? They do not know, and because of this very reason that they are interesting, you find them in serious literature also. So A is correct, but it is not the answer to why. It is the effect. The question asked is what is the cause, right? And A tells you the effect. Is everybody clear? So the best answer is C. And if you notice, it was directly indicated there. The confusing or the slightly uh, confusing option was A. Everybody is clear now? All clear, I hope. Clear है? चलो. Answer is C. Okay, let's try the next question. What, according to the author, would qualify as interesting psychology? Now, this is a question which you cannot find from the passage. You'll have to apply what exactly. Somil, correct answer can be arrived at by reduction. If you mean elimination, yes. By reduction, if you mean elimination, yes. In 90% cases, it helps you in answering the question correctly. Yes, elimination is what you're required to do, right? So let's see in the next question. What is interesting psychology, right? So he is giving you external, situations, hypothetical situations. He's telling you which of them would be interesting psychology. What is interesting psychology? Interesting psychology is a situation in which the players involved will not know what to do. The players will face a dilemma. कुछ करने से will it be good or bad for him, he will not know. So therefore he will experience dilemma. So that is when it is interesting, right? So tell me what is your answers. Tell me what should be your answer. So Vaishnavi thinks answer is B. Krishnakant A. Okay, quickly everybody is answering slowly, right? So abhi tak 3 people answered, and 4, Ruchi, Aditya, Krishnakant and Vaishnavi. right? Majority अभी भी लग रहा है कि B and A. Okay, let's see. I'll give you some time. So Payal B, right? Kriyanshi B, Mohit B, Prasanna also B, right? Mahima, everybody, Bhumika. Okay, some are saying D also. Somil and Ibrahim contractor, Siddharth ko B lag raha hai, right? Aniket and Krishnakant, I think thought it is A, right? And Ibrahim and Somil think it is D. Let's see, let's see. So, what is interesting psychology first of all? What is interesting psychology? Interesting psychology is when the players will not know what exactly to do. They will be faced with internal conflict. Okay? Internal or inner conflict occurs in which the best answer is B. The best answer is B. Right. Let's see. Let's see. देखो dilemma word mentioned जरूर है, but is he, the dilemma is in choosing the method. Is he experiencing inner dilemma? Inner dilemma means अगर मैं ये करूंगा तो मेरे लिए अच्छा होगा या खराब होगा पता नहीं. So he will not know क्या करूं या ना करूं. Here the dilemma is there are 5 options and he does not know what to choose. Is this internal conflict or is it external conflict? This is external conflict. ठीक है, right? Now if you look at B, this is the perfect thing. A chess player's predicament over adopting a defensive strategy against an aggressive opponent. So a chess player is playing against an aggressive opponent, so he does not know should he adopt a defensive strategy against him or should he play an aggressive game. So he does not know what to do because of the other opponent, right? He does not know what I do, will it be good for me or bad for me. So this is the inner conflict. ठीक है, even in C it is just merely choices, right? And the situations are not going to change dynamically, so inner conflict है ही नहीं, right? Even in D, a finance manager's quandary over the best way of raising money. He is not competing against anybody. There are 5 choices, he is going to simply choose, right? But in inner conflict there should be an opposite player also, right, whose interests would be also tied to me oppositely or sometimes coincidentally. Getting the point? So everybody who marked B got the answer correct, right? So dilemma and quandary to A and B may be mentioned here, but this is different. Okay, everybody got the point, I hope. Everybody understood? Yes. Okay, next question, let's see. All understood, I hope. Now, right, Kriyanshi, the chess player is always at risk, right? Okay, देखो Kriyanshi, the chess player, not every chess player, but the chess player who is described here, right? Right, because he is playing against an aggressive opponent, so he does not know should I play aggressively or defensively. Right? If I play aggressively, will it help me or my opponent? Or will it be good for me and bad for him? He does not know. So this is inner conflict. Right? So will all of them have the best? It's not because of the word best, right? It's not because of the word best that we eliminate, right? That is only coincident, right? What you can find is all the eliminated options, right? Here in all the eliminated options, Somil, the player is choosing from different options. He is not competing against anybody active. That is the similarity. Getting the point, Somil? Right. So I repeat, the similarity in all the options, if you notice, his dilemma is he's going to choose from different options. There is no active player against him. Even in C, he is going to choose from different ways. There is no active player against him. Even in D, he is simply choosing from different options, different alternatives. There is no active player against him. Active player against the person is there only in B. Right. So this is what we can also think of. Right. So this is one of the ways to arrive the answer. And if you pick up this elimination technique, right, in CAT, it helps a lot. So 2 more questions. Let's try to answer this. This is a question which was there in the first paragraph itself. Right. So which of the following is true? There are 3 options. Right. Now this question you can answer by reading the first paragraph. I will quickly show you the first paragraph for the sake of your clarity and then I will ask you to answer. first paragraph jaldi se दिखाऊंगा, then I'll show you, because all the points given here are given in the first paragraph. So just look at this first paragraph, 30 seconds पढ़ लो, then you will understand. No, 1 second, sorry. 1 second, sorry. Not this paragraph, sorry. This paragraph you have to read. So, in a situation like this, different players are involved, right? And the outcomes have different people have different preferences for different outcomes, right? And the interests are generally in conflict, right? They can be completely opposite or sometimes partially opposite depending on the game. Okay, so I think you have read it. Now let's try to answer the question. The question is this, right? So what are the points, right? Krishnakant is saying the answer is D. What should be the answer? Dekho, if you notice, accepting one thing you will find, okay, Ibrahim is saying answer is A, assuming that the order of preferences for options is different from different players. Okay, what about B? Accepting that the interest of different players are often in conflict. Generally in conflict hai? Yes, right. Not assuming that the interests are in complete disagreement. मतलब complete disagreement भी हो सकता है, partial disagreement भी हो सकता है. So B and C are very clearly the answer. Right. The answer given by Cat was D. ठीक है, but okay, A गलत नहीं है. There's only one thing, the rank order of preferences for, in the paragraph he does not say options, in the paragraph he says outcomes. Apart from this, everything is fine. So best answer here is A, B, C, D. B and C we know are clear. ठीक है, A में there's a slight problem because it does not say options. I'll show you the rank order of preferences for, what does he say? Look at this, right? The rank order of preferences for outcomes या options. He says outcomes. ठीक है. In the question he says outcome. Remember outcome बोला था ना, यहाँ क्या, what does he say? Remember what does he say here? He says option, outcome बोला था passage में, here he says options, right? Otherwise this is the only difference. So best answer, आंसर निकालना ही है तो डी है, but there's a problem in A, right? Otherwise B and C तो clear है ही. Everybody understood this. The different, accepting they are often in conflict, मतलब generally they are in conflict, right? And not assuming that they are in complete disagreement, meaning complete disagreement भी हो सकता है, partial disagreement भी हो सकता है. ठीक है, so the best answer is D. Right, all clear? ठीक है, right? So yes, there is no option. So best answer in this condition is choose all of the above. But yes, that's what I was telling you. You can choose D, right? But there is a slight issue in A. ठीक है, so 100% perfect answer cat भगवान ने नहीं बनाया. It has not been made by God. So there's a slight flaw. But still you can say that the answer is still D. ठीक है, clear everybody? Right. चलो last question. Now साइंटिस्ट और डिटेक्टिव में प्रॉब्लम सॉल्विंग में क्या फर्क था? फॉर दिस आई विल क्विकली टेल यू. साइंटिस्ट का क्या था? द साइंटिस्ट सॉल्व द प्रॉब्लम्स बिलोंगिंग टू नेचर and it remains stagnant, does not change. While in a detective, right, somebody can make the situation dynamic. The opponent can make the situation dynamic. So that is the answer. Can you quickly tell me what is that? इलिमिनेट करके चल सकते हैं. right? So Aditya, Somil, Yash, Siddharth, everybody is saying the answer is C, right? Baki log, what about others? VM is also saying the answer is C, right? Aniket, almost everybody. Now, if everybody is saying the answer is C, yes, you are correct, right? So everybody here, Krishnakant, Mohit, everybody is saying answer is C. C is correct, right? You can easily eliminate. Scientists study inanimate objects. Inanimate, animate is not at all the focus, right? B, known and unknown objects तो बिल्कुल focus नहीं है, right? He tells you that scientists study phenomena that is passive, it is not changed. While detectives, they might deal with phenomena that have been influenced, they might have been changed, right? This is the only thing, right? Now, option D factually incorrect. Scientists study psychologically interesting phenomena. Scientists जो करते हैं वो interesting है ही नहीं because they are simply finding out solutions to a stagnant problem. Right. So yes, this is the answer. And Somil, the passage is too abstract. Yes, cat may accept, it is expected. That's exactly why you'll have to understand. But then if you notice, is it really impossible to understand? Right. I hope after I explained, you understood it. Yes, you must have. You problem tab hota hai when even after explaining you do not understand. Right. So if you understand after explanation, it means you are capable of understanding it on your own also. Only thing is probably you're not used to reading it like that. Okay, right. Vaishnavi, scientists deal with do the scientists study interesting phenomena? Do the scientists study interesting phenomena? देखो वैष्णवी एक मिनट देखो, I'll show you. According to the passage, the author says scientists, what scientists study, right? Look at this. The effort of solving the problem in itself is not a conflict if the adversary remains passive, like nature whose secrets the scientist unravels. So, what the scientist does is passive, right? It does not change. Okay? So, the effort of solving the problem is not a conflict if it remains passive, like nature, like scientists. So, like what the scientist unravels. Therefore, what the scientist does is not interesting. So you can eliminate like this. So this is something which I always tell everybody. There is something which is wrong here. If it is partially wrong, it can never be correct. ठीक है? Clear है? Everybody is clear, right? So this is what we have to be careful about. So this was CAT 2005, right? So important thing here is you should be introduced to such passages once in a while. कभी कभी करना चाहिए, right? And if you notice one more thing, things become much more easier if you eliminate like this. For example, scientists study in interesting phenomena, ये है ही नहीं. Scientists study known objects, है ही नहीं. Inanimate objects, है ही नहीं. So eliminate like this, and sometimes you can help arrive at the answer like this. Okay, right? So with that, we come to the end of the session. I will meet you again tomorrow. We will continue with the same process. Passages we will keep on discussing like this, and you will notice that this is slightly challenging. Okay, so this is what we will keep on doing every day. So that's it for today. Thank you. Have a nice day. Before we leave, I will give you some information about things which are of use to you. Right now, you can get all the free lectures at one place. The link is in the description, right? And these are the batches which are launched on the 13th of August 2021. If it is of interest to you, if you are preparing for CAT 2021, this would be of interest to you. And those of you who are planning to take CAT slightly on a longer kind of a time scale, right? If you want to prepare for a longer period, you can think of these exams, right? And these are the other exams. So there are different courses for different exams. And these are the teachers who take classes. And I hope all of you understand subscription plans, right? The validity of the subscription plan, if you buy for CAT 2021, is till March 2022. Till the end of the second round, that is right. And if you buy the subscription plan for CAT 2022, it will be valid till 2023, right? So that is it, and I hope all of you will also take this test to find out whether you're prepared for this, right? Prepared for the exam or not. You can see it is going to be live from 28th to the 30th, right? So with that, we come to the end of the session. Thank you everybody. Have a nice day. See you again tomorrow at the same time.